evening, and welcome to a thin but enthusiastic crowd for the, whatever this is, March 12th, 2018 work session. And first on our agenda are committee reports and items of interest. We have a sort of a thin council here today. I don't know if anyone has anything they...
I have one.
Okay. Take it away, Jennifer.
All right, so I have a report back from Metropolitan Wastewater Management Commission. We just recently approved a resiliency planning effort to evaluate their assets, and primarily looking for seismic concerns, but also flooding, and so that's going to get going pretty soon, hopefully. I don't know if I remembered to report this before, but we received a little over $190,000 from FEMA for the 2016-17 winter ice storm, and so that is going to be a little bit over 75% of what they lost because of that storm, so that's great. That, mostly from the poplar farm, damage from the poplar farm. And then we just started looking at the budget, and that's coming back to council May 14th. So.
Okay, excellent. Anybody else with the report? Okay, I think, Manager, we are ready for the work session on River Road.
All right, Zach, why don't you come on up and lead us through that? I suspect we'll have a few other counselors joining us. So.
Great. Thank you very much. Zach Galloway with the Planning Division, here with an update on our River Road Santa Clara neighborhood planning efforts. Joining me today are John Belcher from the River Road Community Organization and Kate Purley from Santa Clara. They are our newly selected co-chairs from the Community Advisory Committee that you will hear about through the course of our update today. And we've been working very closely with Cogito, which is a public involvement firm represented today by Julie Fisher. So she's joining us also if there are any questions that arise about our public outreach. And that's really the purpose of the work session today. We came before the council, Lane County Board, and both planning commissions at a point of project initiation to provide an update as to where we were headed over the next 2 years. And we are going to make a point to come back to you at key milestones throughout the project, just to make sure everybody is informed and knows where this project's headed. And so while it's March, we did an extensive public involvement phase throughout the fall of 2017 and wrapped that up in December, reporting back to the community through a series of newsletters in January. And a little tardy to get back to you, but we want to provide a similar update to what we provided to the general public and our interested parties in the neighborhood. And then you'll hear from John and Kate about the advisory committee and a little bit about where we're headed this spring. So there's a few slides here just to guide us along our way. If this is working, there we go, on. So just to orient the council and let you know the extent of our work in North Eugene, I'll just orient you to the north, and the top of the map. The green dotted line there is the Metro Plan boundary, and there's some complex geography at play because you can see in the two shades of gray the Santa Clara border, or the Santa Clara Community Organization north of Beltline and River Road south. Santa Clara actually extends beyond the urban growth boundary, so if I had another seat here, you can imagine our other project management team member, which is Lindsay Eichner with the county, who's also represented, and we're working closely with her as well to make sure those folks are at the table and represented. And then I'll just point out also the key transit corridor, which is something LTD is working on through their Moving Ahead project, which you'll hear about in mid-April, I believe. And obviously, that work was carried forward into Envision Eugene as well, identifying that area. So this is the friendly project graphic that we've been using with the general public and with you as well, and with our neighbors to be much more engaging. And so tonight we're talking about the reaching out phase, this big number 1 there in the upper left corner. And then right now we are kind of shifting into the vision and the action plan phase, which will come back to you in the end of the spring. But we really want to highlight what was done during the reaching out phase before we dive into that. And head downstream, and we'll come back to this later on. So before we started this project last summer in 17, we reached out and worked closely with Cogito, and we reached out to folks in the neighborhood and talked to the neighborhood organizations and folks throughout the community to get a good feel for how best to reach everybody. And we feel like we're pretty good at doing the conventional typical outreach with big public workshops and that sort of thing, but we recognize that not everybody can make it to those meetings. So we wanted to identify good techniques to really diversify our outreach, make sure that the full breadth of the community was represented and those more diverse perspectives were at the table. So you see just kind of a list of bullets of what we did to try to not just do those typical workshops, but really get our faces out there. And when I say our, it really was folks from, I would say, SCRIP, the Santa Clara River Road Implementation Planning Team, which led this effort for years, and we were just kind of acting as in a support role. And now we're collaborating on outreach and going forward, we need to maintain that relationship. It's very important to the success of this project. So a couple things to highlight here. The photo relates to the volunteer canvassing. You see Terry Harding from the planning staff and Joe Castino, who's from the River Road Community Organization. We paired off and canvassed the entire corridor, River Road corridor, and talked to well over 200 businesses, recognizing that business owners are some of those that don't typically have the time or can't make the time to come attend these public workshops. We also, from that summer effort, recognized that a lot of the folks on the right side, youth at North Eugene High School, the folks we're planning for the next 20 years, Latino members who perhaps have a language barrier, or even affordable housing residents oftentimes perceive that there's barriers to our processes. So we wanted to break those down and actually go and meet people where they were. So we did a lot of small group activities, and basically the activity that we did at North Eugene High School for nearly 400 people, we scaled down and also did in groups of 10 and 8, 20, depending on these smaller group sizes. So we provided some glimmer of what we were going to do back in October, and so this is a bit of a refresher, but we asked folks really two key questions. We provided these playing cards there in the upper right to try and seed conversation and ask people what they valued in the community, what was most important to them, and the things that they would like to preserve for the future. And you see people engaging, talking with their neighbors. We really filled that gymnasium. We were supposed to be in the cafeteria, and that would have been a major problem. So it's a great, fortunate problem to have there, that we were sent to the gymnasium instead. So we got a tremendous amount of great feedback at this event, and it was similar to what you're seeing there at one table is exactly what we did with the smaller groups dispersed throughout the community. The second question that we asked that evening was, what's your idea for the future? And you see these sheets, my idea for the neighborhood. What's your idea for the future of the neighborhood? We asked people to draw. Some people felt comfortable doing that. Other people gave us a full paragraph of ideas, concerns, problems, solutions. They were all over the place, and they're all wonderful. They're all now out on our webpage, so people can kind of review these giant spreadsheets of ideas that their neighbors had for the community. The other idea, or the other avenue that we've provided for folks to be as transparent with all this information as possible, is an interactive map. This is static, but I'll just try to orient you. The red icons, kind of little wheels, relate to comments we heard about transportation. The green, parks and natural resources. The blue dollar signs were for economic development. The orange, small buildings there for land use. And the yellow, we didn't have a heart, but we had a spade. So that became the community concerns and issues. So at this scale, you can kind of see hotspots. Not surprisingly, lots of wheels over Beltline and River Road, lots of concerns about congestion there at the Beltline. Similarly, there's a lot of green trees there along the West Bank path in River Road. People love that particular location. There's some rapids out there, fun places to swim. There's also a lot of concerns around safety and lack of lights along that. So we got a sense of what people value, what they love, and then also potential solutions and things they'd like to see in the community to make that a better place in the next 10 to 20 years. So this is, again, on our project webpage and available for folks to see what their neighbors are saying about the community. We also attempted to just compile all this information as staff to make sure that folks that were engaging just with 10 or 12 also had the opportunity to see what hundreds were saying elsewhere. And so with hundreds and hundreds of comments coming in, we tried to summarize at a very high level and provide newsletters, these kind of short 2-3 page memos that reported back to folks in the month of December what we had heard. So we highlighted, the first was just an introduction to the project. This is what we intended to do. This is what we did. And that primarily highlighted the outreach at North Eugene, some of the preliminary tabling. Then the second one, which I think is in your packet as attachment B, was about the rural Santa Clara outreach. So folks that are outside the urban growth boundary, and county staff went and we supported them and replicated the card game and everything. And then we also did the business canvassing and reported out there. We asked different questions to understand what their concerns were as business owners and what would make their businesses more viable or how we could support those. And then lastly, I'll just call your attention on the right side. We did attempt to translate these and make sure that for that percentage of the population in these two neighborhoods, they had this available in Spanish as well. So as I said, all we've done to date is just compile all this information and then tabulate it. So what you see up here doesn't have any policy judgment on it, and it hasn't been qualified or run through the ringer, let's say, from an analytic standpoint. And that's really what we're shifting into in the next phase with our working groups and our advisory committee. These are simply statements that are high on the bar graph, right? So you see under the value today, there's a lot of focus on, I'd just say transportation safety, support for local businesses or the local businesses that are there today, the natural environment, be it the river or kind of what river roads in Santa Clara feel like is very important with these large canopy trees, which you can actually see from Spencer Butte. The neighborhoods just stand out down there. And then lastly, the agricultural heritage, which I know Kate might speak to. You jump over to the My Idea, and again, these are things that we just heard repeatedly. Not surprisingly, preservation of agricultural land scored very highly, supporting small and local businesses. The need for more restaurants, or what people kept calling out for gathering spaces. So again, this is kind of an economic development issue. We would just kind of, it's kind of a planning term to say the third place. So it's not home, it's not work, it's that other place where you can just meet the community, meet your neighbors, hang out, be it in a park or a private location like a coffee shop or a tavern or something. And then the kind of those last handful you see all relate back to transportation issues. Better bus service or expanded bus service, more sidewalks, traffic calming. And then lastly, we did get a fair amount of comment around the jurisdictional confusion. Just recognizing that whether you're in or out of the city or the county, you get there's concerns around public safety, and it's really, I would say, more of a service delivery concern whenever you read through those questions. And so now we've gathered all that. We need to take that and start crafting the plan. And we're moving now downstream to a vision that we've worked on in one neighborhood workshop with our working groups on each of those topic areas: land use, parks and natural resources, transportation, economic development, and then a broader one called, that we're just referring to as a community group. Let me see. And I've asked John and Kate to speak a little bit about this advisory committee that the two community organizations have nominated and our planning commission confirmed. So they were just recently nominated, or no, not nominated, selected to be co-chairs. of that CAC. And so I'll let them take it away.
Thank you, Zach. Hello, everybody. I'm going to jump around a bit, so forgive me if this is disconnected. Talk a little bit about what the CAC has done so far. As Zach said, we were appointed in January, but we just met for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and we've had two very productive meetings where we have laid down our working agreements and also the way that we're going to work with the city. We agreed we would collaborate, and to that effect, we as co-chairs will be meeting with the project management team as they go forward so that we're coordinating both city staff and the neighborhoods as the project moves forward. We also wanted to make sure that we brought forward the information and the work that was done by Script as well. So the way we've managed to do that is, first of all, we have an agreement that the key issues that Script brought forward will be melded with all those things we learned in October, and that'll be the grist for the mill to create the vision statement. Script met with the CAC on Saturday. We had a potluck, and we got to meet each other, and Script shared all the work they had done thus far and baptized the CAC to move forward for those of us who weren't there already. Let's see what else. So let me tell you a little bit about at least the River Road portion of the CAC. We had an embarrassment of riches. We had 22 applications for 5 positions and an alternate position. And they not only exceeded our expectations in quantity, but also in quality. It was very hard to choose the people that we did, but let me tell you about them. One of whom is Cameron Ewing. He's on the ARCO board already, so he creates that connection to the neighborhood association. He's a National Guard vet from Iraq, and he's a U of O architecture student. So he brings knowledge of how building actually works to this process. Louisa DeHeer is a young mother. She has a 1-year-old child, yet she still agreed to be on this group. She served on the Wow Hall board, and in her past, she and her husband actually developed a microbrewery, I believe in Ecuador, before they moved up here. Michelle O'Leary, on the other end of the age spectrum at least, is a retired ODOT manager. Been in the neighborhood for over 30 years. She's currently on the Active Transport Committee and is on the board of BEST. Rebecca Sprinson is the executive director of the Eugene Education Association, so she brings all those skills with her. Our alternate is Luke Callahan, not Luke Callanan, Luke Callahan, who's the he runs Small Farm Academy, which is an online resource for small farmers to get educated on how to be a farmer, and gives them accounting skills and so forth to move forward. And then there's me. And I provide a link between both the ARCO board and Script. So I guess I'll stop there.
So I just would, I think, like to reiterate that we're really focusing on a collective approach of the residents working with the city staff to create what we call our neighborhood area plan, because for us it's the most important aspect of it is that it's a neighborhood driven plan and that it needs to feel that way and reflect that truth all the way through the plan. And I think that that's probably the best chance for success at the end, is to keep our neighbors on board, keep them engaged, and keep them involved in more than just brief check-ins every few months. That we're actually the working groups that are doing the legwork for the plan in the different categories of land use, transportation, parks and natural resources, economic development, and community are made up of our residents, taking all the information that's been gathered so far and working with a technical advisory group that's staffed by City of Eugene and Lane County staff to help keep the details organized and keep us within sort of regulatory protocol, or the bumpers, as we like to say. But the actual moving that forward, creating the dynamic between that group is all done by the residents and resident volunteers. So that feels like a pretty great process for us at this point, because I think that's really considering the breadth of the plan and the scope of the plan and the depth of detail that it's going to need to entertain, I think having the residents provide their expertise and enthusiasm is going to give us the best possible outcome. So I just wanted to reiterate that that was something that we're all working on. And I would just let you know who the CAC members are from Santa Clara. So we have Rick Duncan, who many of you are familiar with. He's served on the Eugene Planning Commission. He's a commercial real estate owner in our neighborhood, although not a resident. We have Tara Cleveland, who's a young mother and a teacher who focuses on youth advocacy and particularly on youth struggling with issues related to poverty. And her self-proclaimed reason for being around the neighborhood and being involved in this way is promoting equality, safety, and the natural beauty, particularly for people who come from a more disadvantaged perspective. We have Ann Vaughn, who many of you might know has lived in our neighborhood probably 30 years and was a teacher and an administrator at North Eugene High School. She's served on the board of the Santa Clara Community Organization for a long time and was instrumental in the script process and the scroll process and the transition team and all the way back to our last community. What was the one that she did with you and Jerry?
Opportunity citing.
Yeah, but even before that. Oh, well, anyway, she's very, very involved. We have Louis Vidmar, who's a newer resident. He's only moved to Santa Clara in the last 5 years, and he joined the Santa Clara Community Organization Board a year ago and joined Script at that time, too. So he brings a sort of a fresher perspective. He's an employee at the University of Oregon. We have Ed McMahon, who's the HBA director, and he has served on the Santa Clara Community Organization Board for a number of years and was also part of the Script process. And our alternate is a gentleman named Carl Bilo, who's been living in Santa Clara for over 30 years and has served on the Santa Clara Fire District Board. And then there's me, and I've been part of all the different planning processes for the last 20 years in my neighborhood and have served on the board and was also part of the Script team. So I think in terms of bringing Script's history forward and using it to help guide this process, we're pretty well covered in that direction. And we're trying to make sure that in each one of those working groups, there's a CAC member and a Script member so that the institutional memory and history is brought forward and is made integral into the process as we move along.
Great.
So can I add one more thing? We feel it's pretty important that we stay connected to you as we move forward, and in particular to our city councilors. So hopefully we will create liaisons, especially with you two, and keep you informed as we move forward. So when we get here with a final plan, it makes sense to everybody.
I would just extend that invitation for connection to all the counselors. Like we would be thrilled if you wanted to meet with us, to meet with our boards.
You already blew it.
Well, that's okay. I'm from a different neighborhood.
Talk to your neighbor.
We've got Beltline.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Kate.
Sort of thanks, John.
I will just conclude with giving you a quick timeline of where we are and where we're headed. I've mentioned that we are attempting to identify these neighborhood values and craft that into a vision. We're meeting March the 20th, bringing those working groups back together along with the CAC and our city staff. And then from there, by the end of spring, late March, before folks disappear into June after school lets out, we want to actually be back in front of the public with that vision and at least an outline of the action plan to give them an idea of where we're headed in the summer, finalizing that before we get off and craft goals and policies and that sort of thing in the next phase of the work. With that, I think we'll conclude and answer any questions that anybody has.
That is great. I want to thank you so much. I think we all have a lot of enthusiasm and optimism around this process that you've undergone for a long time with a huge amount of community involvement. So thank you very much for bringing it to this point in this kind of shape. And I have Mike already in the queue. Mike, then Claire, and then Chris.
And
And
Alan.
Alan. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say thank you to all the neighborhood leaders involved, especially you two, because I know John has worked for so many years and as a member of the Planning Commission done so much and through all of these processes through script and even before. And I can say that the first Santa Clara Community Organization meeting I went to was 13 years ago, where Kate had already been involved for years and years before that. And I got to hear at the time about I got to have her help me at the time understand some of the pieces of the transition plan and all the things that have been done before then. And so there's been a gigantic amount of work by an awful lot of people, by Jerry and Ann and everybody out there. And I just want to say thank you for all the hard work.
Claire.
Thanks. Yeah, and I fully concur. And just along those lines, wanted to just ask, because you pointed out, as you shared with us, who was going to serve on these CACs, that some of them were newer, just newly involved, and I'm just wondering how you guys are feeling about that.
It's nice to see folks who aren't as gray as I am in these types of events. It's very impressive. I'm speaking especially for the folks in River Road that I know better. They may be young in age and maybe not so new to the neighborhood. They bring a lot of skills from other venues that will, I think, move us forward and provide a face to the public that says, no, you don't have to be 60 years old to provide opportunities and input to this process.
Yeah, and I would say being new to the neighborhood doesn't mean that you aren't necessarily invested. And so these are people who have demonstrated, by coming to community organization meetings and taking on volunteer opportunities and putting themselves in a position of leading with what they know instead of trying to know things they can't possibly have learned yet. And so we really appreciate the fresh perspective they bring because, as you know, development continues apace out there. And so there are always new residents who have no concept of the historical time frame or the narrative that goes along with our neighborhood, but they still bring whatever they bring to the table, and we have to meet them where they're at. So helps us do that, I think.
If I may add, I would just say that when the ARCO board chose these people, they had plenty of folks who were the regular suspects who kindly volunteered to join, but I believe they made an intentional effort to broaden that outreach for that purpose, and that's why you see who's there.
Yeah, that's great, and I appreciate your comments about that, because I think there is this impressive legacy of work that's gone out there that needs to be, part of what we're doing now, and that's obvious by you folks sitting here at the table with us, and then welcoming folks who are newer to the conversation and giving them the space to become engaged is, I think, really indicates a very healthy process for me, from my perspective as the city councilor thinking about those dynamics. So the fact that there seemed to have been a conscious effort to embrace newer folks into the process and to bring them in while keeping, the veterans on board as well, I think speaks well to the intentionality of what you all are doing right now. So thanks for that. And then I just wanted to ask Zach if you can remind us these little updates, how are those getting shared out?
We have compiled those into a more cohesive report and posted that on our project webpage. We've also we've shared that with everybody who's now on our interested parties list for the project. So throughout the fall and even now, we're adding more and more folks. So we're well over 900 people that are on that at this point. So we've distributed that as far as we could electronically.
All right, great.
And we will use our emails, e-news, and social media to extend that even further.
Thank you. Yeah, that's been very powerful. So I say 900, but ARCO and SACO both have their own mailing lists that go out to potentially different people entirely. So that's been another way that we are able to collaborate and communicate consistently.
Can I add one more thing, Claire? Is I think what we're really looking for in this process is capacity building, right? How to reach people that we don't already know and that aren't part of the process. And so this opportunity for them and more robust help reaching them. I mean, Santa Clara alone, we're over 20,000 residents. And so to reach all those people is a massive undertaking. And as you know, we only get funding from the city to mail to the actual city residents, and over half our residents are county residents. And so we can't afford to pay for that out of our neighborhood association budget. So being able to build capacity through this entire process so that moving forward for the next 10, 20, 30 years, we have a much more informed and engaged populace out there can only be to the good. So.
And one more thing, we've started talking with the PMT about having periodic mailings. To
Project management team.
Sorry, acronymese again. The project management team to schedule some mailings to everybody in the neighborhood, businesses, et cetera. So if we don't reach them through those other media, we'll do it that way.
Thank you.
Chris?
Yes, thank you. Actually, what Kate was referring to right at the end was something to divert just for a second. Engagement is always more expensive than outreach because to engage people requires a lot more effort, a lot more work, and I'll talk about that again later. But I love the presentation you've made and where you are now. I think you're doing all the right things, and you've put in place some very important outreach elements that will pay off later on when you move into the next phase, which is getting commitment from people, the engagement piece. And I think what's important for me, and the lesson I learned from South Willamette is you can spend a lot of time processing and developing ideas and finding out what people are interested in and what they'll write down and the pictures they'll draw, and that's really great stuff. And then you use that as the starting point to then develop what are the specific proposals, because you will not have any sense of whether or not people are committed to an idea, whether they'll actually follow through and engage in it, unless you're giving them something specific. And so I appreciate where you are on the river. You're only partway down the river. You're at the idea vision stage. And so what I'm saying is when you begin to get to that critical action plan, we're actually going to start creating some proposals to bring to people to kind of test whether they're going to actually be committed to them. You need to test as broadly as you can, because if you test these ideas with a relatively small group, even though it has some new faces, and I really appreciate the whole new faces approach, I think that's absolutely outstanding, that's wonderful, but you're going to need to test those proposals on a wider level. That's really the core of a lot of what I learned in the South Willamette experience. Is we knew a lot about ideas, we knew a lot about concepts, we knew a lot about values, but until we actually took those and turned them into proposals, we had no sense of what their actual commitment and engagement would be. You have the opportunity to actually do that at the appropriate point in the process, and all the work you've done to this point really gives you a solid foundation to create those proposals that you will then go out and test. And I, for one, will be extremely interested in the results of that testing. Because at the end of the day, it's really the proposals that get implemented. We can talk ideas for the next 5 years. Proposals are what get implemented, and I'm very interested to see how you will be able to manage that. And if I ever had faith in any group to do that, I have faith in this group, because I think you started well. You're at a good place in the process, and you know where you need to go to really get something tangible. And so for that, I say thank you, and I really look forward to the next phases of this project, because I'll want to see what the people up in that part of town are actually going to commit themselves to, because that will be very telling for me.
I think you've just hit on what we'll be doing at the end of the spring, which is gauging their commitment in that next big community outreach event at North Eugene High School.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really appreciate you emphasizing that, because in addition to the CAC and the public meetings, a key piece of this project has been collaboration with community partners that represent individuals that are not going to show up at the public meetings on a regular basis. So whether we're working with St. Vinny de Paul or Fruitford Lane County or the schools, the things that people are saying in those small groups do reflect a different demographic and a different voice than if you look at the compilation of the public meetings. And so affordable housing, having access to recreation services, the public safety issues, were major there. And so it's just so important. We had a panel of community partners speak with the working groups and the CAC just 3 weeks ago, and they had some powerful stories to share. So those linkages will be increasingly important in bringing together leadership voices for demographics and to support elements like affordable housing in both neighborhoods. So thanks. And so the inclusion report in the compilation of reports shows the results of some of those conversations, and I just encourage you all to take a look at that.
Great, thank you. Alan?
Yeah, you guys continually set the bar higher and higher for process and innovation and involvement, despite John's comment, for neighborhood plans. I think it's amazing, and all the work that you're doing. I love the engagement that you've got and the collaboration that you've got going on here. And I know you're rowing down the river, keep rowing hard. And you're at the vision part, getting into the action plan part, but I'm really eager to see what comes out of that action part and what people will commit to. I think this will set the template for how other neighborhoods do this stuff. There's a grant, right, Zach, and that is associated with this project, and how does that interact with this, the dollars and how much was it, and what's the time frame for that?
So there's a request for proposals that's out currently, and this relates to a grant that we pursued before. I think we had received explicit direction from the council to start the neighborhood plan. So a little bit of embarrassment of riches at the moment to try and get that grant ready. And I think once we close that RFP process, we'll be working on a scope of work with a consultant team to actually look in more detail at that key transit corridor. So we want to have a very clear vision from the community, from the broader neighborhood plan before we really ramp that up. So we need to get the deliverable from the neighborhood plan squared away before we really launch the focus on just the corridor element of that. Right. The good part is that we have a transportation team and a land use team, a working group, of neighborhood volunteers that are all very interested in these issues. So we hope that we can blend those two very nicely and seamlessly.
For the folks on TV, maybe you can say how much the grant is and where it's coming from.
Oh, certainly. So the Federal Transit Administration awarded Lane Transit District and the city with $450,000 to look at development potential, financial feasibility, and really work closely, collaboratively with the neighborhoods and develop a very clear vision for what the River Road corridor can look like.
And the timeline, the end of that grant, when is it deliverable?
They really run concurrently. The neighborhood plan and the grant should run concurrently over the next 18 months to 2 years.
Okay. So we'll see you crossing the finish line with your paddles over your head sometime in middle of 19-ish.
I see. Fingers crossed. Yes.
Fingers crossed.
Let's say yes.
Right, well, you're good start.
Got my bailing ready.
It'll be a team effort.
Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple things. One, Chris, I appreciated your whole comments about commitment. I think one of the things that's been really nice, the council's shown some real commitment to this particular project as well. You might remember that coming out of the Envision Eugene process, there were a couple of priority neighborhoods. This was one of those, River Road Santa Clara neighborhood, and the council approved that. And also you approved dollars and appropriated dollars to move forward on the planning process. So I think that's so I appreciated your comments around the commitment. And the other thing that I think is nice is just the partnership with the county, which I think we're always looking for ways to continue to intersect with our intergovernmental partners. I think this is a nice example of that. So I really appreciate the work as well.
Okay, any other final comments, thoughts? Thank you very much. We are very excited about this process and look forward to hearing the next phase.
I'll be giving you a call, Alan.
Okay. I just want to mention, both for folks who are here and folks who are watching, that we are missing 3 counselors who are all at a National League of Cities meeting. So that is why there's some vacancies around the table, but people are working hard on behalf of the city in another location. So, all right.
We won't take it personally.
Good.
Okay. Evening, Mayor and City Councilors. I'm Michael Kinnison, the Director of Community Development, and I'm here this evening with Brian Obie and Casey Barrett from the 5th Street Market District. And we're here to talk to you about the 5th Street Market District project. Before we get to the fun part where you get to hear about Brian and Casey's vision for the project, I just wanted to spend a few minutes talking a little bit about the significance of the project to downtown, as well as flag a few areas where council is likely to have some decisions related to the project as well. You might be asking yourselves why this project, why are we don't have a particular action tonight, why are we here talking about the 5th Street Market project? We don't bring every development proposal to the table unless we have a particular action, but I think similar to that other little project we have going on a bit to the east of this one on the riverfront, this project is significant in many ways, significant to what we're trying to achieve downtown. In fact, it could be one of the most significant developments in downtowns in terms of the dollars invested, scale and mixes of uses, and the potential to move the dial on many of our stated goals and policies around downtown development and compact urban development. I'll start with the downtown plan. So our downtown plan has identified this block where the project is located as first on a list of downtown development opportunities. The plan calls for facilitating development between the core of downtown and the river that supports urban qualities of density, vitality, livability in a diverse urban environment. And a key component of that vision is multi-unit housing at a variety of income levels. And then there's Envision Eugene, which includes strategies aimed at integrating new development and redevelopment in the downtown, meeting our 20-year multifamily housing need within the UGB, and building housing affordable to all income levels. The 5th Street Market project has the potential to contribute to all the aforementioned objectives, and we also see the development of this area tied to the success of the downtown riverfront development project. Thriving residential and commercial uses in the 5th Street District area can only help spread positive energy towards the river and help make that project a success as well. The downtown plan calls for actively pursuing public and private partnerships to achieve its vision, and this is a very complex project that requires coordination and cooperation among multiple partners for the overall vision to come together. The 5th Street Market folks, Homes for Good, formerly HAXA, our affordable housing partner, Lane County, and the City of Eugene, just to name a few. And so with that in mind, we've tentatively identified 3 areas that the city will have an opportunity to partner on this project. First is with the multi-unit property tax exemption program. There's an interest in pursuing a MUPTI for the residential component of the project, independent of the Homes for Good project. And while we don't have an application yet, the proposal will follow our standard process of neighborhood engagement, MUPTI community panel, and third-party financial consultant review and recommendation, and eventual council action. Second, the project design has building footprints that overlap with existing city-owned alleys on the property, and alley vacation has been identified as an important component to success of the current design, and council will have to approve any alley vacation requests. And then finally, the property is within the Skinner Butte height limitation area, which extends from the river to the north side of 6th Avenue. Typically in a C2 zone, which is what this area is zoned, the height, allowable height is 120 feet area, but within the height limitation area, it's restricted to roughly 80 feet. On the south side of 6th, it actually is 120 feet. The height limit currently presents a conflict with the height of the proposed hotel that you'll learn about. And any changes to the height limitation area will require a code amendment that includes planning commission hearing and recommendation and council hearing and action. So we anticipate coming back to council with greater detail on these issues in the months ahead, but we wanted to flag them for you this evening. And with that, I'll turn it over to Brian and Casey.
If you're going to do the heavy lifting here tonight.
Brian's given me the honor, and I think I'll steal that clicker from you there, Mike, if I could. Well, thank you, everyone at this table, for being here and giving us the opportunity to share more details about our project with you. And thank you to you, Mike, and everyone on your team. You guys have been great to work with and helpful throughout the process. I really appreciate that. As a quick side note, for those of you who don't know, I am just returning from Hawaii. Brian and I were down there for 2 weeks where I was just married. Brian was the best man, and you'll all be happy to hear he fulfilled his duties. I came back married. But all that being said, if you ask me a question and we order a strawberry banana smoothie, it's because we're still shaking out the cobwebs of vacation. So behind us here, you'll see what we have planned for the corner of 6th and Pearl, right across the street from the 5th Street Public Market. So this all started 5 years ago now when the county came out with its request for proposal. Brian and I got together, we took a look at it, and we said this is something we really need to respond to. And the reason being is the strength that we're experiencing at the 5th Street Public Market. We've been in that location in downtown Eugene now for 42 years. We've been a member of the community, and we've been a gathering point and a celebration point for the community. We are experiencing full occupancy. We're about a third traditional retail, third eateries, and a third office space if you look at our tenancy. And we believe that that mixed use aspect is really a key part of our strength. So what we're doing and what we're proposing to do here is do more of the same, do more of what's been working really well and expand upon that. So we want to take exactly what's been working in the market and take that across the street into the market expansion. So here you see here, if I can find where this laser pointer is, I have a few of these at my house, my pets love them. Here's the 5th Street Public Market where we've been 41 years. The Inn of the 5th, which we just developed 6 years ago now, excuse me. And just again this year was announced in the top 25 of hotels in the country by TripAdvisor. Again, experiencing great strength there. This is the half block of land right across the street where we're proposing to develop. And of course, our great partners on the project, Homes for Good, who Jacob Fox and Steve Oakes are in the audience as well tonight, are planning on developing right across the street from us. That'll be about 50 workforce housing units, and we'll see a slide of that coming up here in the presentation as well. So here's what it is today, and here's what we're hoping that we'll be able to bring to you in early 2021, right after the turn of the year, in time for the World Track and Field Championships, when the eyes of the world will be on our community. So you can see here, mixed use is definitely part of the development. You see the apartment building, which is here. We're using the apartment building along with the Inn of the 5th and the finishes on the apartment building to really help tie the two developments together. It's important to us that they feel cohesive and part of the same district. The market building that's on the corner, that's going to be primarily commercial space, and then another boutique hotel that's in the background. So here is a different look at a massing study that helps separate the elements a little bit more clearly. Again, the apartment building, that's going to be 113 market rate apartments with ground floor commercial space. The apartment building will also have rooftop green amenity space as well as indoor amenity space and a large fitness center that will be there for the apartment users and also shared between the hotel possibly. The market building on the corner that I mentioned earlier, that's about 30,000 square feet of commercial activity. We see on the ground floor, we're already in talks with a very exciting anchor tenant that we're hopeful we'll be able to announce to you guys in the near future. They'll take a 5,500 square foot space right on the corner and then possibly some space on the second floor. That's still being worked out. But the market building is really going to be a mix between commercial, retail commercial, and office space. We see the top floor being a creative office space, which is that type of office space where you can rent an office or a desk on a monthly basis. Really allows entrepreneurs to get in an environment where they're surrounded by more entrepreneurs and leads to more businesses, which we're excited about. The market alley that you see there is a long covered area between the apartment building and the market building. Facing the market alley from both the market building and the apartment building, which we're actually referring to as the market lofts, are going to be micro retail spaces. So just like the 5th Street Market has now, we're going to have some of the very best local Northwest-based retailers in that market alley facing each other, create a dense area of activity in downtown Eugene that'll be protected from the elements year-round because it'll be covered by that long steel and glass structure. The blue building that you see on the west side of the property there, that's another independent boutique hotel that we will own and operate. That will be the third hotel in the OB Hospitality family of hotels. It'll also have a large rooftop amenity deck connected to an indoor amenity space, and we see this as being a community event space. It will not be only for hotel guests. Whether you're having a 60th birthday party, baby shower, any of those things, things going on. This will be a great spot where people can come together in the downtown core to celebrate. On the ground floor of that hotel, we'll also have another 3,000 square foot restaurant space that'll service the hotel as well as the large meeting space that we'll have on the second floor. Excuse me. So here's just a closer look at the rendering I showed earlier. You can understand the elements in the market alley there in between the two buildings. One of the opportunities we see here as part of this project is really to increase the pedestrian and vehicular connectivity throughout the district and through downtown. This market alley will go on and connect over here right across 6th and Oak, where right on the other side we have the Saturday market and the farmers market. They'll be able to move easily, and it'll be a welcome and inviting experience through this market alley across what we're hoping is a raised pedestrian crosswalk right across Pearl Street there, really to encourage that pedestrian connectivity and making it as safe as possible. And then on, of course, to the Fifth Street Public Market, but then on to the future riverfront development that we're very excited about. And we saw Williams and Dane in front of you here earlier this year, and excited to hear about the details of their project. So here's a look at our partners. This is Homes for Good. Again, Jacob and Steve are with us in the audience. They're planning about 50 workforce housing units directly across Oak Street from us. The ground floor commercial space that you see there, we will actually buy from them as a condo. We have an agreement put together. We do retail day in and day out, and so that's an exciting spot where we can play a larger role in their project. We'll also be able to support their project in the beginning by, obviously that purchase will help infuse some capital in their project and help things get up and going a little bit quicker. They'll also have a rooftop amenity deck, as you see there. But a beautiful building, and one that we're excited about being part of the project. I think it's really important, and this is why we decided to partner with what was then known as Hacksaw when we made the proposal to the county 5 years ago. It is crucial that we get workforce housing in our downtown core, that people that work downtown can afford to live downtown. I think one of the most exciting things about this project is that you have multiple economic classes and activity all living together, taking place in one area of dense urban development. So here's a look, if you just back out a little bit, of the area that we're talking about. So the dotted line is what we're identifying as the core of the market district. The market district is an area that's recognized on Google as a larger area, but it really doesn't have any identity in our downtown core right now. So that's what we're hoping this development will help create, and we'd like to pursue the street topper signs like you see up in the Pearl Street district that the Portland has. We'd like to really create an identity to this district so that people know where we're talking about and that they're in an area of quality residential retail and eateries. Workforce housing, that's Homes for Good right across the street there from Oak Street. The bus barn is also part of Homes for Good deal with the county. They are planning on continuing the same uses there, which is a daycare for the county, which we believe is also a very important use, and some additional office space. The U of O Arts Building, you can see up there, is the former Willamette Stationers Building. U of O purchased that and is turning that into an arts hub, a very exciting development, one we're very excited to see in the Market District. And we hope on our boutique hotel to work with them quite a bit to get the arts infused as much as possible into our project. The historic post office, I have to sidebar for a second. I'm on the board of the Lane County Historical Society. For a long time, we've been looking for a new home. We believe this is a great opportunity and one we've seen take places in other communities across the country. We'll be back in front of you at a later time to talk more about that. But we believe that if we approach the federal government and we work together, we can get that acquired or donated to the city of Eugene, to the county, so that we can use that as a museum location in our downtown core, which as we bring more and more people to our downtown, I think it's crucial that we have an area that represents what we're about and who we are and where we came from, and that you can visit that easily and make it accessible for everybody. Obviously, the Holt Center being in this location here, with the addition of a hopeful museum site in the U of O Arts, we also begin to assemble an arts and culture district in our downtown core, which we believe is crucial. The riverfront development, obviously right off to the side, and we'll have a connection point right over here off of 5th Avenue. And we're very excited about the work they're doing there, excited about the farmers market development as well as the night campus. Everything going on in Eugene, it's an exciting time to be involved. So here's a close look at the boutique hotel I mentioned. It will be the Gordon Hotel. Gordon Obie was my great-grandfather, Brian's father. Gordon moved to Eugene in the 1960s when he immediately immersed himself in the local history and the art scene. He was a world traveler and an artist. And so we are going to use Gordon as the muse along the way throughout this hotel to help tell the story of the history of Eugene and the vibrant art scene that we have here in the community. So like I said earlier, we look forward to working with the U of O on this hotel and the arts arts in the hotel. We look forward to our artist in residency program where a student could be in the lobby at all times creating works of art, so they can also have a back and forth dialogue with our clientele. They can form clientele of their own and get some of that real world experience. You can see the rooftop amenity deck with some umbrellas off of it and an indoor amenity space, as well as a large ground floor commercial space. Here's a look at the Market Alley that I mentioned. So this is a space between the Market building as well as the apartment building. This is where we're going to have that small commercial space facing each other. So on the right-hand side of the screen where you're under the apartment, those will average probably close to 900 square feet, which is really small on a commercial basis. On the other side, they'll average around 450 square feet, which is a lot smaller on a commercial basis. And that's a really good size for local retailers, whether it be a tasting room, whether it be somebody, an artist that's getting started on a studio, or any of our other great breweries or eateries. We look forward to assembling some of the very best that Eugene has to offer in this tight area and create another draw to downtown Eugene. And then here's the corner shot where you get the Gordon, the Market building, and the apartment building, the Market lofts, all together in one. You can see why that raised pedestrian crosswalk is going to be very important. Right now there's a man with a stroller walking right through the middle of Pearl Street, and so we need to find a way for those people to get back and forth from the site safely. All this being said, I think this is very exciting for us. We are a local company. We are going to be local. We're going to be here in Eugene for the long term. This is an opportunity that really checks all the boxes laid out in Vision Eugene, taking an underutilized site and turning it into a higher and elevated purpose, bringing that dense residential into downtown, and also helping connect downtown to the riverfront for more pedestrian circulation throughout our city. Also very excited about the aspect that this is truly a public-private partnership between us, Homes for Good, the City of Eugene, and Lane County. This is really a great opportunity for all of us to come together, work on something exciting, and something that we'll be proud of having in our downtown core for years and years to come. So that being said, appreciate the time, and we'll open it up for questions.
Excellent. It's really beautiful. The depiction of it is beautiful. It's very exciting. We look forward to seeing it move forward. I have Mike in the queue. Anybody else? Claire? Okay, Mike, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Brian and Casey. Congratulations on all counts.
Thank you.
I saw the pictures from Hawaii, and I thought that looked beautiful. I thought you guys looked like you had a good time.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate the presentation very much. I have long advocated the idea that when properly constructed, the Market District will be one of the jewels of our community, and I see you bringing that to life with this. And it's an awful lot of hard work, but you guys over time have proved the capacity to do that well, to do it exceptionally well, and to do it successfully. So I have every confidence that this will be as successful, if not more so, over time. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm very excited about it too. Good job. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Claire?
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, and just want to acknowledge that Brian and Casey gave me a presentation on their plans as well a few weeks ago. And like Councilor Clark, I'm very excited by the vision that you've laid out and the prospects for this Market District, and looking forward to seeing what this council can do to help make that a reality. So I just had a couple of questions actually for Michael. In looking at the maps there, you mentioned that one of the actions we might need to take is an alley vacation. Was an alley vacation done when the Fifth Street Market property was put together with the parking lot?
I don't know the answer to that. Was there, Brian?
That was. Yeah, there was
Just looking at the line continuing.
The east-west, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Maybe 42 years ago.
Not before I was involved. Yeah.
Me too.
One of about 10 different expansions, I guess, of the market, yeah.
And then this was the first time I had heard a mention of the idea of an overhead, though I typed in my notes overheard, pedestrian bridge. Is that something that we would need to do any?
I don't think that's what was intended. I think he would.
Elevated concrete sidewalk. I apologize.
I'm sorry.
Just a little bit of a raise so the vehicles know pedestrians are supposed to cross here.
Need a special permit.
But if you think
add on to that,
It's not about.
Sky Bridge.
That's what I thought.
Public Works has been,
No, just raise
working with
sidewalk.
Public Works has been great, and we've had a couple of good meetings about what to do with the street there. And And out of Public Works, there came the thought of a shared street, so that you literally do have cars and bikes and people there, and it's moving slow enough and interesting enough that it can handle that. And so that idea is percolating and evolving, I think, inside Public Works right now. So we're really excited about that, because we do want to tie not only the two parts of the district market together, but as we begin to move people towards the river and towards the riverfront project, make it continuous.
Yeah.
Continuous.
Well, that's great. I'm glad you clarified my misunderstanding. I think the idea of that kind of open street, I'm not sure what Public Works refers to it as, is a great idea to maybe trial in this kind of development. We've got Broadway and Willamette. We've got a lot of pedestrian activity there and cars coming to a stop, but there might be other ways to create that dynamic safely that encourages kind of the shopping and pedestrian activity that you all envision for the space. And then, Michael, you had mentioned that we might need to consider a waiver of height limitations, and in the presentation that I received, it was mainly, I think, referring to the signage that's gonna.
If you want me to respond, Michael, it's actually, so right now the way the code's written is the parapet wall is the height. That's where they measure to. And we're held to 500 feet above sea level. Right now that parapet wall is anywhere between 503 to 508 feet above sea level, depending on global warming and swelling of the ground. But it's right above that. The sign does increase that and is a little bit higher. So I think what we've talked about is a 50-foot allowance that would bring it into basically where the Hilton is, but only for that block, and then would stop at Fifth Avenue. So you still have a staggered approach to the butte. So the butte is still protected, and we're not planning on going any higher than what you see here. The sign, I think, itself is about 15 feet tall, as shown in this image.
So you actually answered one of my questions, which was what was the purpose of the height restriction? And so it was view shed for the butte. Is what I'm
Yes.
So on that, I was just wondering, does it apply to flagpoles on top of buildings? I mean, do those come into that minimum height?
I wonder if I could break in just a moment, because I want to let you know that that code amendment and the alley vacation would both be brought to you as quasi-judicial land use matters. And what that means is state law, out of fairness, requires that those matters be talked about only at meetings that have been noticed for that purpose. Because we've had some communication about it tonight, what we'll do is make sure that all the materials from tonight's meeting go into the record for that process, but it would probably be smarter if we hold off on additional conversation about those two issues until you're ready to bring those questions to council.
Okay, so I can't have my question answered about whether or not flagpoles are included in the height restriction?
It would be that. I don't think a flagpole is at issue in this particular development, so I think
I will ask it later.
No,
in an email.
so you can ask that question. Yeah. You can ask that. Yes.
The answer is.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know the answer to that, Claire, but I can follow up with you and clarify what the code says in terms of what the limits. So I will do that.
Okay, no, those are all my questions.
I become an expert on
Okay, Chris.
Thank you. A very, very exciting proposal. And what's particularly interesting for me is you're basically taking a parking lot and turning it into something that's really productive and very useful. And parts that appeal to me, what I liked about it is you're talking about basically building off of the success you've already had. You've been here for 42 years. You've built something that's very familiar, very successful, and you're basically wanting to do more of that. And so it's not something that's weird or strange or we've never seen it before. You're wanting to create a commercial property along the lines of what you've already done and along the lines which I think would be compatible with the community. You talk about boutique retail spaces and smaller, that's I think very compatible. So that's very familiar and very, very like what we do here. And also residential. And while it's important to have workforce housing and low-income housing, I absolutely agree. Part of our Envision Eugene goal is to just have more housing downtown. We want 1,000 more units, and a certain number of those absolutely need to be workforce or lower-income housing. But there also needs to be, as you say, a mix of housing downtown just to have more housing there. So I think if you look at this project, not as one big, massive thing, but as the three individual pieces, I look at each one of those pieces and I see a community benefit out of each one. The apartment building, I think, provides more housing downtown, the kind of housing that a variety of people could use, in addition to the Homes for Good housing, which will also serve a very important purpose. The commercial, the way you're doing the commercial, I think is very compatible with not only downtown, but with the community as a whole. So I think that's also something that is very well thought out and follows the same market district kind of orientation that's worked so well for 42 years. When you look at the other commercial space, the hotel, they're also something that we're really going to need. You mentioned the World Games. Having another hotel available, particularly a hotel that follows the successful model of Inn at the Fifth, I think will do nothing but help us when we get to that project. And there'll be other things along the way. So having more hotel rooms, more apartment space, more of the kind of boutique commercial that we're looking for are all three very useful, very compatible, very familiar kinds of things downtown. So what I applaud is you haven't come in with something giant, weird, and different and complex. You've come in with something that's building on what you're already doing. And I think that provides me a great deal of a comfort to think that I'm not going to be looking at something that's going to be more complicated than people can grasp. I think each of these three things really contributes, and so I'm really interested in seeing how this thing fleshes out and what your applications might look like.
Great. Alan.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. It is very pretty. What I like about it is the district concept, and I like that it's developing an underutilized site and reforming that. I like that it's adding to downtown density, which is where density should be going. I like that there's more downtown housing, and I like that there's more needed hotel space. It was 108 in the apartment complex, and how many in?
Sorry, 113 in the apartment and 82 in the hotel. Yeah.
Okay, 113 and 82. And then I like the market alley concept. I think that's pretty cool. I like the workforce housing, 50 units. That's awesome. And they both have rooftop spaces. I think that's very cool as well. And it'd be great amenities and some more meeting space in the city. Maybe anniversaries would be another place you could.
Anniversary is a good idea. You have to remember those, yeah.
And that you're helping create a downtown arts and culture center is very cool, and I like the proximity to the and the interconnection with the riverfront development at eWeb, and so what I'm skeptical and concerned about is, of course, MUPD. I have not been a MUPD fan, although we reformed it, and to get some real public benefits out of it, I still will need a heck of a lot of convincing and may not get there. And to make this project work. I also have concerns about parking, and maybe you can talk about that a little bit more, and traffic, how that's going to create. And then would the sign, would you turn that off late at night, or would it be on the whole time?
We haven't gone to that nuance. I assume that if we put it up there and we're proud of it, we'd keep it on, but depending on the conversation, I think we could be open either way, maybe between 3 and 4 a.m. It turns off. I'm not sure.
Cool it off.
Yeah, or we could have it flicker like one of those nice go on and off real
We
quick.
don't have many check-ins after midnight, so it's probably a chance.
Right. But maybe you can talk about parking and traffic a little bit and use one of those slides that showed the overview.
Yeah, so parking definitely is a great concern of ours. We understand the importance of that. We do actually, if you take a look at our district, right now we have about 500 free customer parking spaces within the district. That's free 3-hour parking, and we're actually assembling right now our own parking and security department to be able to monitor that and also provide more security to our customers. So that we have somebody constantly patrolling. Really, the hard part is making sure that we don't have employees and tenants parking in those spots, tying them up all day so they're not available for customers. So we actually have a few parking spots that are off of this screen that we own separately that we sell tenants permits on. At the same time, we are going through a study right now of including an entire half block of parking below the project. That is one of the more challenging aspects to make work because of the cost. But we are hopeful that after some re-envisioning on it and how it would lay out, entrance to it, that we found some economical ways to maybe make it happen, or more economical ways. But that really is where MUPTI is a critical component. I understand the concern. I can say with confidence, and you'll see this when we submit the application, is that we would not be able to develop this apartment building in the downtown without the assistance of MUPTI. Right now, construction costs and activity is so high, it's extremely hard to get a project like this in the downtown core to pencil, particularly with the parking element. We believe the parking is very important to it for the safety of the residences and also just continuing to bring more people downtown. But we think also parking is a larger issue that we're going to have to address as a community with the uses going on in downtown, the butterfly lot possibly and hopefully becoming a farmer's market. That's more parking that is going to be going by the wayside, and we're going to bring more and more people to downtown. So I think that's something as a community that we're going to have to take a look at together and address. Ride sharing coming back is a very positive component that allows people to get throughout the city without having to store a car somewhere. So I think between those factors that we'll be in a spot that we can make it work and make it happen. But it is definitely one of the things that we continue to keep a close eye on. We have no parking requirements in our district, but we have strong requirements we put on ourselves just because we know it's not going to work if we don't have adequate parking to bring people down.
Right, because downtown doesn't require parking.
Right.
As it exists, but this will bring a heck of a lot of people. Maybe you can just briefly discuss why it's more expensive to develop downtown than other places, say Oakway, which they just built a hotel.
They just built a hotel. Well, I think there's going to be a lot of traffic control, and there's going to be a lot of things that take place in the downtown core. It's a much tighter site. I think development right now, anywhere you go, is more expensive in general, let alone downtown. So I mean, it's just another layer that makes it more challenging and more expensive to make it happen.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other comments, questions? Yeah.
I think a good question is why do projects like this get announced and a lot of times not happen? And there's a fragile nature to this project, and it's actually the fragile nature to this particular project because it started 5.5 years ago when the county came out with or 6 years ago with their RFP, and we created a proposal along with Hacksaw at that time, and we're prepared to move ahead in anticipation that MUFTI would be part of that. And the council decided, well, maybe MUFTI is not the way we wanted it, and so the council spent 2 more years figuring out what MUFTI maybe should be and how it should apply, and we went off to Boise and built a hotel while that's gone on. And you decided what it should be, and now we come back, and here we are, and here Hacksaw is, and here we're all at the same table. And there's a lot of things, I think a lot of reasons that projects do happen or don't happen. We're certainly hopeful. We really feel we've got ourselves on the line. The community has bought in, it seemed like. We have to produce. But, anywhere from system development charges to permit charges to improvement charges in the streets to alley vacation charges, all those, say 1% tax on building, all those add on. And I can tell you that project on the apartment side is close enough to the line, and we'll share those numbers with the world and everybody. And it's not about enriching ourselves, and frankly, it's about the risk factor, and it's about how much can you charge for rent in Eugene, Oregon, for a 500 square foot apartment or 700 or 900 square foot apartment. There's a limit on that, and it all relates to the capital costs going in, and so it's a fragile thing. We are going to work really hard. Our biggest tasks lie ahead of us rather than behind us. And we do believe that this has got to be a partnership in much more than a motion, and everybody's got to have equity in this game and to make this happen. And hopefully we can demonstrate something that is good for the community, that more of can happen and lead on to other things. One of the major reasons that it costs more downtown is the parking. Whether you buy the parking by land, which costs more than it does in a suburban area such as Oakway, or you build it. It is for us to go down and build in and the water tables that are there is a very expensive thing. And then to be able to get the apartment rent on top of it. Yeah, maybe we could put a hotel on top of it because the rent structure is different in a hotel than it is an apartment. That it primarily the circumstance we find ourselves in. So it's we've got a lot of work to do. I think the council is going to have to help us along with this, and the staff has been wonderful working on that. I mean, our partnership with the city, with the county, the city administration, county administration, commissioners, I believe the council, and the community, and our neighbors, et cetera. Hacksaw, there's a lot of people involved. It's been really positive to this point, and I think our task is keep it positive, keep it going forward, find out the answers as we go along, and try to find the solutions. And you guys, you're going to be a big part of that, and we appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I think that, we're all deeply appreciative of your investment in this community, long-standing investment in this community, and vision for how this community can grow and can create opportunities for people to live, work, and play downtown. So we do look forward to working with you and taking the next steps and having those conversations. So thank you very much for this presentation. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
45 minutes.
Great.
I texted you a question today.
Are you going to adjourn?
I was just going to
Oh, sorry. And we're closed.